Wow, that was just another fantastic discussion between you and John. But I did want to have a little sidebar to talk about the issue with electricity, radar, satellite on the human body, and this 5G that we're all concerned about. And I want to pose a question or a hypothesis to you, Douglas, and see how you respond to it. So back in the day with the Spanish flu, we now know that these symptoms that look like the flu were really about the electrical being introduced to the world, and that had it had an effect on the human body, and then they had the flu. It looked like that. And then every time they roll out something that's a little higher, and I'm not an electrician, so I don't know if it's I'll just call it the frequency. We look at the rollout of radar and then of the satellite. The human body is affected by this. But what I find curious is, yep, we survived. And in fact, sometimes I feel like that energy is actually feeding and fueling me. So when I look at 5G and I see, okay, now this is going to be even a higher frequency and it's supposed to be harmful to us. Is it possible that those of us who have prepared our etheric body in the way we just described couldn't harness or feed off of that energy coming to us in a beneficial way? And especially if we applied the technologies we've been discussing, the spiritual technologies like using the sigil or using other devices and methods to cohere the static that's coming to us and making it more focused. Is there anything to that?
Yes. When first we'd have to say there's a physical body, a life body, a desire body, and then your personal I am. The personal I am and your desire body in the daytime eats up your life body and your physical body. It eats it. If you were to stay awake for 3 days, you're killing yourself, right? That's just simply known. So is it possible that over time, as we've seen 1G, 2G, all of them, there's now actually 10G being used. There's 6G being used for medical. So, the fact that they think it's a big deal to put out the 5G. No, the 5G was put out so that it'd have a carrier wave. It had the foundation for building 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and further. So the question is, does that stuff change your DNA? Yes, it does. From the Spanish flu on, anytime that they started radio broadcasting with electromagnetic frequencies, putting it on wire, telegraphy, putting it on wire, anytime you're around wires, what does it do? It harms you. It kills you. It's called electromagnetic sensitivity. And whether you like it or not, you have it. Everyone has it. And yes, the human being is very adaptive. And we can see animals and insects that when they get exposed to something new, they can adapt to the point that it's shocking. They can literally change their entire chemistry, their body, to adapt to the new situation. So a human being has more adaptability than that. So basically, someone said the other day, I'm going to steal the phrase, the rest of your DNA that isn't written on, that's the stairway to heaven. And what is going to rewrite your DNA? That would be gamma rays, ultraviolet rays, electromagnetic frequency rays from the sun. Everything the sun sends down to us, if it wasn't for our atmosphere, it would kill us right away. So since the atmosphere is thinning, the ozone's thinning, everything's thinning, we're getting more cosmic radiation, gamma rays, ultraviolet, all this is coming in. Is it mutating the body? Yes, it is. That's why our telomeres in every DNA is all fractured and frayed.
But it seems to me, and John, I'm going to put John on in a minute. He has something to say there. But see, it seems to me that over time, it has changed our bodies, but we have reacted to it. And now some of us are not going to make it because they've injected material in their bloodstream that is going to react negatively to this. But for those who have been preparing their spiritual bodies, I just think this could be the spark that sends us to the next level of ascension. Let's bring John on. He's got some thoughts about this.
Yeah, there was a book published a few years back by
now,
Arthur.
Of course, our cats know all about that book, but
Yeah.
You could refresh those who've just tuned in.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of people here perhaps that haven't seen this. The Invisible Rainbow, A History of Electricity and Life by Arthur Furstenberg. And in there, he does quite a thorough study of the cyclical development that's coordinated between the rolling out of a new level of electronic technology, radio waves, and so forth, and that concurrent with the rolling out of this new disturbance and particular frequency band, that there would be new conditions that would arise at the same time. And he showed a correlation between this. But it's interesting to note that over time, the human body, with the tremendous wisdom of which it arises, becomes more adaptive. And so that it appears as though the indication is if the body isn't given enough time to come into coherence with it, then that's when the problems arise. And so that is supportive of what you're saying, Tyler, is that if we can have something coherent by which we can pass into whatever new frequency they're tooling around with, that we're going to come out with a better result.
Okay, but I know I got to go one more step here is because they know, and when I talk about the theys, the Babylonian Radonites who've had control over humanity for 6,000 years, so y'all know who I'm talking about when I say they knew that at some point in human evolution, we were going to begin ascension and we're going to leave them behind on the planet as they devolve into lizards. Well, they want to stop us. So what they did is they started attacking our biofield with bad nutrition, bad health, bad ideas, spirituality that is a dead end, because that body is built up also by our thoughts and by the way we approach the spiritual. So they started attacking that, but we can stop it right now, and we can reverse that spin and actually use that energy to, boom, spark us into ascension.
Well, that's what this thing does, you see. Any of these devices, what do? They take the EMF coming in, which is completely incoherent, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of different frequencies coming in, and that's what the sigil does. It coheres it, and then because the energy is coming in, the energy has to do something. Once it's cohered, the very energy that was poisoning you becomes your nutrition. Because
what those symbols do and the things that you're showing, and there's not just one. People, do your research, and what you'll do is you will find what works for you. If you want to fill your room with shungite, if you want to hang sigils, but these devices are spiritual technology that speak a language that's over the language of this electronic realm, and it's telling the realm, we put it on all of our barcodes. It's
to stop the barcode, because the barcode's a sigil that is pure evil. It says 666. It's calling for Soroth to incarnate.
Yes.
This calls for Christ to overcome it.
Yes. It says do no harm. It reverses the spin. It coheres the negative energy. And we get reports in from people all the time that just simply printing these sigils and placing them is working wonders. Now, when you want to build up your biofield and protect it, I don't use just one thing like a sigil. I use the sigils. I might put crystals and shungite. It's about what we read, what we digest, the friends we have. These are the things that build up your biofield.
Now, we have seen, for instance, growth hormones and all the hormones they give to animals. What has that caused? Caused all my children to be bigger than me. It causes all the children to get big. What is that? That's an adaptation. What happens when you take your phone and you work in the dark? It makes you blind. Literally, children are going blind because of the blue light coming from their stupid devices.
Okay. So this gives parents the knowledge of why they need to remove these devices. You can't use them as babysitters because the babysitter is the demon.
Absolutely. So you need to know what they are. But here's the other deal. We need our DNA to transform. Every single time you eat something new, and let's say you eat something that you can't digest, that's because you don't have the mitochondrial DNA for it. But if you eat it enough, you'll develop the mitochondrial DNA to be able to digest it. So you can track back everything that anyone in your history, every relative you ever had, what they learned to eat and when by your mitochondrial DNA. So you have in your cell, in your DNA, the ability to adapt in a way that people can't even imagine. But early on, in the early sequencing of our own genome, what do we find? In position 22, I believe it is, the God gene. They're now trying to splice the God gene out of DNA. Well, hello, the more you develop your passion for God, the more you develop your passion for the divine and try to reach enlightenment, you are stimulating new DNA to be created. And what is it going to do? It's going to make you stronger. Evil is here to make good stronger, period.
Right. And it's not going to go away. And none of us, because you've been with Douglas and me for the last 10 years, folks. You've seen the evil. We've called it out. We've pulled it out, and nothing has been done about it by our system because it's so corrupt. So we have to leave that undoing to Jesus Christ. And then what we do as individuals is start working on ourselves, start bringing the spirituality back to us, educating our children in that way, building up our physical forces through good nutrition. And this is a defense mechanism against the evil and this technical world that's being, Ahrimanic world that's being pushed on us.
We can emit a specific frequency that can do just about anything with the human body because we respond to these frequencies. So we have in our room the frequency of a master qigong, a person creating a sound, and this sound is a frequency that stops all the bad frequencies. And also you have a torus field around your heart, one around your stomach, one around your head. Those three, when they're cohered, can basically push back the majority of EMF. Now remember, who was it that brought radio frequency transmission to America? Sarnoff. He was a pilgrim. He was a general. And who was it that then owned the majority of the large radio frequency emitters in the country? General Woodruff. Is it Woodruff? Yeah. What? Military, because it was considered to be the death ray. When they started broadcasting wirelessly, they believed they could turn it up and it'd be the death ray. Folks, they've been right all along. But they didn't understand when they put the wires for telegraph that this was going to cause fantastic illness. Now, we have written articles on this, and literally I have made the list of a whole set of new illnesses that are all directly derived from the frequencies coming from devices like this, from your computer, from 5G, from microwave in your environment. So when you're aware of it, that in itself can be part of the antidote. And then when you start to use different devices, and Tyler just put a thing about shungite, you take shungite, you put it in any circuit, and the dirty circuit's cleared instantaneously. And it isn't a joke. You can see that it's the case.
Mike took some shungite home with him and put it in his office on the electrical box, and a plasma ball and they still can't figure out, even the electrician whoa, what happened here? So go ahead, John, please.
Yeah, well, if you're looking at from another angle, perhaps you can go to a DNA itself. And so what do you have in DNA? You have your 22 autosomal pairs of DNA is the standard way of looking at it. And then you have an extra pair that determines whether it's a male or female. But the 22 autosomal pairs it has a correspondence in the unlikeliest place for most people, but the Hebrew alphabet has 22 letters. And so you have this idea of the mystery of the word. And so when St. John the Divine is talking about Christ as being the word incarnate, he means it actually. Okay. And so what are the adversarial forces trying to do? They're trying to mess it all up. They're trying to take the regency from the word away from the world and bring it into the realm of just a meek shadow reflection, because the abstract thinking is merely like a ghost of an image of the world. And so that's when, like in the East, when they talk about Maya and illusion, that's what they're referring to, is that really the representation that you perceive isn't the depth of reality.
But folks that are listening to these two brilliant men describe these things, you do not have to understand it at this level. They are explaining to you how it works. What you need to do, if you want to start protecting yourself, is the simple things we've taught you. And all of the papers we've written, get your energy clear, get your body clear, The sigils are there for you to use. Put them anywhere and everywhere. Go again. It's dowsing is good. All of these things, and build your body. And do not live in fear. The Saint Michael poem. I think it's a poem verse. That's the word I'm looking for. That Rudolf Steiner has about walking through fear. If you want to get to the other side, you have to walk through the fear. Do what it takes in your bioarc to reduce the fear that you would have, and then take the courage and trust Jesus Christ and your spiritual coat of armor. No harm is going to come to you when your biofield is strong.
Your etheric body is that body she's talking about. It's the body of life. The DNA is part of that. And anything that is living and growing is part of that. And your DNA, now they know, emits blue light, and it emits frequencies and signals. And it basically is communicating like a whale. Each whale pod has their own sounding. And so that's what your DNA is. It's your own sounding. So when you're standing next to somebody who has mutating DNA that's allowing the spirit to come in because they're writing on the DNA that's not been written on, the stairway to heaven, that's because you resonate with them. So the problem here is that humans try to be God. And so throughout the whole universe, there's electrostatic energy, and they're probably going to soon say electricity is thought. Steiner said, no, that's a terrible thing. Don't do that. Thought is living beings. They're archetypes, and they are part of the creative word. But when it comes to electricity, static electricity, when it gets magnetized, becomes electromagnetism, takes light ether, pulls it down into the subnatural realm, where it's using a kind of a reversed chemical ether, a reverse sound ether. So imagine, the transverse waves that sound is propagated through, that's the same thing that's being used by EMF. We don't need EMF. We don't need transverse. We can use scalar waves. We can use the antenna that we developed, which Bell Laboratory at the same time developed the best antenna they ever developed. They're not even using it. Our body is a broadcasting and receiving antenna. There's the three toruses I talked about before. When those come into perfect coherence, you have so much power that you can literally, especially if you do what John said, use the word and use the power of the word. You can literally stop these things from being in your environment by prayer. For instance, if I wanted to stop all EMF from coming in without any devices, I'd do the continual prayer, not I, but Christ in me. That alone will create the force that will stop incoherent energy from harming your body, and will rewrite your DNA so that the God particle expands into a much bigger section of your genome.
Well, I keep in mind it's a qualitative issue. It's not quantitative. Say, well, they got millions of watts pouring, and you get all worked up thinking about the scale of their operation, and you look up in the sky and they're spraying all this stuff, and it's just a mess, right? But you have to understand the power of the word. You have to understand the first 14 verses in the Gospel of John, and approach it in the proper humility, because remember, the earliest Christian communities, they were like hospitals, and they also did exorcism. So what they were doing was dealing with things on a very real level. And if you think we're out there for talking about these things, well, then I guess you would have considered the earliest Christian communities to be really out there.
Your DNA can be repaired. The telomeres can be repaired by frequency. Once you know that frequency, you can hum it and repair your own DNA. So all you have to do is go and say, query, and it's in our articles, the exact frequency that you have to have. Basically, it's C, middle C, and it's it's A above middle, A below middle C, and that is the ohm frequency of your heart. So if you can tap into 7.43 frequency and hum it, A.
Well, see, there you go. You're making it all very difficult again.
It's as simple
if
as that.
technique resonates with you, go for it. Find the technique that works for you. Stick with it, because again, the etheric body is about rhythm. Find your rhythm. Make sure there's a rhythm that is at a higher frequency, and you are going to be protected. I'm telling you, you're going to be protected. Have no fear. These people cannot hurt you. Now we're going to wrap it up, because I didn't intend to do another hour video here, but John is raising his hand in the background.
Well, yeah, keep in mind, in light of what Douglas just said, because in the esoteric papers of Rudolf Steiner, he specifically says that if you chant Om before you meditate, it drives away all the unwholesome spirits. I mean, he just says it, so if somebody wants to argue, well, they can argue with Rudolf Steiner, but good luck with that. So I want to thank everybody again. This is
One other thing, John,
more than important.
there are things that correct the telomeres. C60 is one of them. You know of a bunch of other ones. What is it
Well,
that
there's
people can
quite
take?
a few things that can create a helpful environment. I think we should probably do another visit to that subject because it is radically complex. But yes, C60 is one very important thing that can be used to be able to protect your
Let's do this on
intracellular
Friday show, and then that way
environment.
we can come prepared.
Yeah,
Will be
Okay.
good?
these things have to be done in with the proper respect
Yes.
because they're complex. There's
Yes,
no
and we
simple
will
way.
be looking at the comments for people and specifically what you might want to know.
Well, I want to thank everybody for sticking with us here, and we had another masterful presentation from Douglas and Tyler, with myself chipping in on occasions. But so keep us in mind if you're looking for a way to take your heart into the future.